Nobody is coming to push you. Not today, not later, not when it gets harder. There is no external force assigned to keep you moving, no reminder calibrated to your potential, no signal that activates when you slow down. Progress assumes self-initiation. Stagnation assumes waiting. Most people do not fail because they lack ability. They fail because they expect activation from outside. That expectation feels reasonable. It is everywhere. Feedback systems, deadlines, pressure, consequences. These create the illusion that movement is enforced. It is not. All external pressure is temporary. It fades, it shifts, it disappears. When it does, behavior reveals its true driver. If motion depends on pressure, it stops. If motion depends on identity, it continues. Nobody checks if you are still aligned. Nobody escalates consequences when you drift quietly. Nobody corrects the gap between what you planned and what you did. That gap expands without resistance. This is not neglect, it is the structure. Life is not designed to push, it is designed to respond. Response favors those already moving. Waiting feels passive, it feels harmless. It is not. Waiting hands control to circumstance. Circumstance has no preference for your outcome. The rule is simple. Momentum is self-generated. Direction is self-enforced. If you do not push yourself forward, nothing replaces that function. Nothing compensates. Nobody arrives. That is the system.
Waiting feels logical because it mirrors how most systems operate. In school, deadlines push behavior. At work, managers apply pressure. In social environments, expectation enforces action. These systems condition dependency. Movement is triggered externally. Compliance is rewarded. Over time, this becomes default logic. People learn to associate action with pressure. When pressure is present, they perform. When pressure disappears, they pause. The pause feels reasonable. There is no alarm, no immediate penalty, no visible loss. So waiting feels safe. Another factor reinforces this pattern. Feedback is delayed. Effort today rarely produces immediate confirmation. Results lag behind behavior. Without feedback, doubt fills the gap. Doubt encourages waiting. People tell themselves they are thinking, planning, or getting ready. These labels soften inaction. They create the illusion of progress without requiring movement. Waiting also protects identity. As long as you haven't fully committed, failure can be blamed on timing. I didn't really try yet. I'll do it properly later. This preserves self-image. Action removes that protection. Action produces evidence. Evidence can contradict belief. Waiting avoids confrontation. Another misconception strengthens the habit. People assume clarity precedes action. They believe once they feel certain, movement will follow naturally. This is backward. Clarity is a byproduct of motion, not a prerequisite. Waiting for clarity is waiting indefinitely. Finally, modern environments reward responsiveness, not initiation. Responding feels productive. Initiating feels risky. Risk encourages delay. Delay feels intelligent. It is not. Waiting does not prepare you. It postpones exposure. And exposure is the only mechanism that generates momentum. Waiting feels logical because it aligns with conditioning, protects identity, and avoids uncertainty. But logic built on external pressure fails in environments without it. When no one is coming to push you, waiting is not neutral. It is a decision to stop.
Progress begins when initiation replaces expectation. Initiation is the act of moving without being prompted. No reminder, no pressure, no signal. This is the shift most people never make. They wait for motivation. They wait for urgency. They wait for permission. Initiation ignores all three. It does not ask whether conditions are ideal. It acts under existing conditions. This is why initiation feels uncomfortable. It removes excuses. When you initiate, failure becomes possible immediately. Possibility of failure creates resistance. Resistance is misread as a sign to wait. It is not. Resistance appears at the boundary between intention and action. Crossing that boundary is the mechanism. Another misunderstanding blocks progress. People believe progress is driven by intensity. They try to push harder once they start. Intensity is optional. Initiation is not. Starting small and repeating outperforms starting big and stopping. Initiation converts planning into behavior. Behavior creates feedback. Feedback creates adjustment. Adjustment creates direction. Direction is what most people lack. Waiting preserves potential. Initiation converts potential into position. Position compounds. This is why those who move first appear to accelerate faster later. They are not faster, they are earlier. Initiation also changes identity. You stop seeing yourself as someone who prepares. You become someone who acts. Identity reduces friction. Reduced friction lowers cost. Lower cost extends duration. Duration creates momentum.
Momentum removes the need for pushing.
Once momentum exists, continuation becomes easier. But momentum cannot be borrowed. It must be generated. No one else can supply it. Initiation is not heroic. It is procedural. A decision to begin without guarantee. Most people never make that decision. They wait for something external to force it. Nothing does. The only thing that moves you forward is the behavior you initiate before you feel ready. That is the rule. Progress does not respond to desire. It responds to action.
Most people stop when pressure disappears, because pressure was never support, it was substitution. External pressure replaces internal authority. When it exists, behavior continues. When it fades, behavior collapses. This creates a fragile system. As long as someone is watching, monitoring, or enforcing consequences, movement persists. Once that presence is removed, there is no internal mechanism to continue. Stopping feels natural. There is no immediate signal that something is wrong, no warning light, no alert. Progress decays silently. Another factor reinforces this. People associate effort with urgency. When urgency disappears, effort feels unnecessary. They tell themselves they will resume later. Later rarely arrives. Without pressure, there is no boundary forcing re-entry. This is why many projects stall midway, not because they are difficult, but because nothing demands continuation. Another misunderstanding appears here. People assume stopping means quitting. It does not. Most stopping is gradual. Frequency decreases. Standards soften. Intensity drops. Nothing dramatic happens. This slow decline is dangerous because it avoids confrontation. There is always a rational explanation. I'm busy. I'll pick it up soon. These explanations protect comfort. Comfort is the real inhibitor. Pressure temporarily overrides comfort. Without pressure, comfort regains authority. Once comfort governs behavior, initiation stops. People also misread self-direction as motivation. They believe they will feel like continuing. They wait for internal signals. Those signals are unreliable. Behavior cannot depend on feeling when no external force exists. This is where many capable people stall. They are competent, they are prepared, they simply lack enforcement. Not from others, from themselves. Without self-enforcement, momentum decays. And when momentum decays, starting again feels heavy. That heaviness is mistaken for burnout. It is not. It is inertia. Inertia exists wherever initiation is absent. Pressure hides this weakness temporarily. When it is gone, the weakness is exposed. Nobody returns to push you forward, not because they don't care, because the system assumes you will. If you do not replace pressure with self-enforcement, stopping becomes permanent. That is why most people stop when no one is watching. This requires replacing pressure with enforcement. Not enthusiasm, not intensity, enforcement. You must decide what happens when no one is watching. That decision must be made in advance. You must remove the expectation of reminders. No alerts, no external triggers. If action depends on being prompted, it is not self-driven. You must define non-negotiable starts, not goals, starts. Goals invite evaluation. Starts require execution. You must commit to initiating even when progress feels invisible. Invisibility is not a signal to stop. It is the default state of compounding. You must stop waiting for readiness. Readiness is a feeling. Initiation is a behavior. You must act before confidence appears. Confidence follows evidence, not the reverse. You must narrow acceptable behavior. Choice invites delay. Delay dissolves momentum. You must accept discomfort without interpretation. Discomfort does not mean something is wrong. It means pressure has been removed. You must install structure where pressure used to exist. Fixed time, fixed minimum, fixed exit condition. No escalation, no compensation. You must treat continuation as a rule, not a response. When motivation is present, you continue. When motivation is absent, you continue. Continuation is the mechanism. You must stop confusing freedom with lack of constraint. Constraint is what keeps you moving when nothing else does. This is not about pushing harder. It is about becoming the force that does not disappear. When pressure is gone, your system should still run. That is what this requires from you. Over time, reliance on pressure creates a predictable outcome. Progress becomes conditional. Action requires force. Force is inconsistent. When pressure is present, movement resumes. When it fades, momentum collapses. This creates a stop-start trajectory. Nothing compounds. Each restart feels heavier than the last because inertia increases. People misinterpret this weight as exhaustion. They assume they are burned out. They are not. They are unconditioned. Without self-enforcement, effort never becomes routine. Routine is what lowers cost. Without lowered cost, every action demands willpower. Willpower drains quickly. This produces a cycle of dependence. You wait for deadlines. You wait for consequences. You wait for urgency. Life provides these intermittently. Intermittent pressure creates intermittent progress. Years pass inside this pattern. Activity exists. Output does not scale. In contrast, self-initiated systems behave differently. When action is enforced internally, momentum stabilizes. Stability reduces friction. Reduced friction extends duration. Extended duration allows refinement. Refinement creates leverage. Leverage changes outcomes without increasing effort. This is why self-driven people appear calm under low pressure. They are not relaxed, they are regulated. Regulation replaces force. Another consequence appears. Identity shifts. You stop seeing yourself as someone who needs to be pushed. You become someone who moves by default. Default behavior defines trajectory. Once initiation is internalized, external pressure becomes irrelevant. Deadlines no longer control you. Consequences no longer scare you. You are already moving. Those who never make this shift remain dependent on circumstance. Those who do outgrow it. The long-term consequence of waiting for pressure is stagnation disguised as patience. The long-term consequence of self-enforcement is quiet acceleration. One drifts,
the other advances. Nothing else explains the difference.
Nobody is coming to push you. Not because you were forgotten, not because you were unimportant, because the system assumes autonomy. Progress is not managed, it is not monitored, it is not enforced. If movement does not come from you, it does not come. Waiting is not neutral. It is surrender disguised as patience. Every day you wait for pressure, you give authority to circumstance. Circumstance has no interest in your outcome. Self-enforcement is not intensity, it is continuity. You do not need to feel ready, you need to begin. You do not need clarity, you need initiation. Once you initiate, momentum replaces force. Momentum removes the need for pushing. But momentum only exists after repeated starts. No one escalates consequences when you quietly slow down. No one corrects drift. Drift accumulates. The only mechanism that counters drift is self-generated motion, not motivation, not pressure, decision followed by execution. When no one is watching, nothing changes. That is the test. If you move anyway, you progress. If you stop, nothing replaces that function. This is not harsh, it is accurate. Nobody is coming to push you. So either you install your own enforcement or you remain where you are. That is the rule. Movement is your responsibility. Everything else is optional.